Remember the 80s? When Saturday mornings meant sugary cereal, toy commercials disguised as cartoons, and action figures scattered across the living room floor. For millions of kids, one name reigned supreme: He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. With a cartoon that dominated weekday afternoons, toys that shattered sales records, and a cultural footprint that rivaled Star Wars, Masters of the Universe was a phenomenon. But there's one missing piece of the puzzle that never happened. One you would assume was inevitable. He-Man and Nintendo's marketing campaigns could not have aligned more perfectly. They both centered around one word: power.
Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you're playing with power.
While everything from G.I. Joe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Silver Surfer found their way into Nintendo's 8-bit powerhouse, He-Man never did. No epic side-scroller, no sword-swinging adventure, not even a lousy LJN movie tie-in. So why? How did one of the biggest franchises of the 1980s, a brand built for kids and tailor-made for video games, never appear on the NES? Today, we're diving deep into the secrets and history behind one of the strangest missed opportunities in video game history. This is the untold story of He-Man and the missing NES game. Let's get started. To understand why He-Man never made it to Nintendo, we need to go back to the beginning, even before Eternia had a name. In 1982, toy giant Mattel launched Masters of the Universe, a line of muscular barbarian action figures inspired by Conan the Barbarian, Star Wars, and Frank Frazetta fantasy art. Within 2 years, the brand exploded, fueled by the wildly popular Filmation cartoon that debuted in 1983. He-Man was everywhere. Lunchboxes, bed sheets, Halloween costumes. By 1985, Mattel was selling over $400 million in Masters of the Universe toys per year. And naturally, they turned to the next frontier: video games. But here's where things get weird. Believe it or not, He-Man did get video games, just not on Nintendo. In 1983, Mattel released The Power of He-Man for its own Intellivision console, which was also ported to the competing Atari 2600, which is the version I have. It was a primitive shoot-'em-up where He-Man flew the Wind Raider and battled Skeletor. More like Defender than the heroic fantasy you'd expect. But if I'm being honest, it's not fair to just write this game off as a Defender clone. Because after you completed the Defender-like level and landed the Wind Raider on Castle Grayskull, you could go inside the castle and battle Skeletor. Yeah, I guess that's Skeletor. It was okay. Not terrible, but not iconic. And that's the point. The brand's first step into gaming wasn't exactly legendary. Then, something catastrophic happened. The video game crash of 1983 obliterated the North American market. Toy companies, already nervous about declining profits, fled the industry entirely. And Mattel, which had just shuttered its Mattel Electronics division at a loss of over $300 million, swore off video games altogether. So when the Nintendo Entertainment System arrived in 1985 and resurrected the industry, Mattel wasn't ready to jump back in just yet. But surely by 1986 or 1987, when the NES was flying off the shelves, Mattel would want a piece of that action, right? Well, not exactly. Nintendo in the mid-1980s ran its ecosystem with an iron fist. Every cartridge had to be manufactured, approved, and licensed by Nintendo. This wasn't a simple slap your IP on a game situation. Companies had to play by Nintendo's strict rules, and Mattel wasn't keen on handing over control of one of its most valuable properties. Remember, Mattel was a toy company first. Their priority was action figures, not software, and licensing He-Man for an NES game meant losing creative and financial control to a rival in the children's entertainment market. There's another wrinkle too. Mattel was actually Nintendo's distribution partner in Europe. They helped sell the NES overseas, but that business relationship ironically made Mattel more cautious. They were focused on selling Nintendo hardware, not competing with it through licensed software. But you can see that Mattel didn't want to fully link their IPs to possible awkward relationships with Nintendo, such as the Barbie NES game, which they worked alongside High-Tech Expressions to help bring that game to life, instead of doing it in-house like in the Mattel Electronics days. And by the time the Power Glove and games like Barbie had came out, it was way past He-Man's prime at that point. But wait a minute. Didn't Mattel make those little muscle figures back in the mid-80s? And they were featured in an NES wrestling game, Tag Team Match Muscle, in 1986. But this game was not truly based on the muscle toys. The game had already released in Japan on the Famicom, and it was based on a Japanese manga series. I believe it's pronounced Kinnikuman. But when Mattel licensed the toy line for the US, they allowed Bandai to bring the game overseas too. All Mattel had to do was approve the US release. No massive budget, no risky development deals, no stakes. It was a quick way to promote a toy line without gambling millions. Nowhere near the cost and time lost to try to get an entirely brand new He-Man game to market. By 1986, He-Man's star was fading. The toy line had peaked. Sales were down nearly 70% from its mid-1980s high. New toy competitors like Transformers and G.I. Joe were stealing shelf space. And here's the kicker. With the 1987 Masters of the Universe live-action movie bombing, along with the 1988 original toy line of He-Man being discontinued, the thought of investing a lot of time and energy in 1989 and 1990 to He-Man would make little financial sense. Especially since Mattel had tried this strange futuristic He-Man reboot in 1989, so taking a step back to the quote-unquote old style He-Man would probably be something they wouldn't consider. So what are we left with now? One of the biggest toy brands of the 1980s, a cartoon that defined a generation, and a gaping 8-bit hole where a legendary NES adventure should have been. Fans have imagined what could have been. A Zelda-like journey through Eternia, a Castlevania-style battle against Skeletor, maybe even an RPG blending He-Man lore with Metroidvania mechanics. Instead, we get nothing. Not because He-Man wasn't worthy, but because of corporate fear, bad timing, and the fallout of a market crash. It's one of the great what-ifs of gaming history, and maybe that's just part of the charm. The idea that in some alternate timeline, kids popped a gray cartridge into their NES, raised their controllers to the sky, and shouted, And if this is your first time here at the channel, my name is Tyler, and if you love gaming from all generations like we do here at G3, then consider hitting that subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss anything. And special shout out to JW Storm for finding Mullet Boy first in our last Rad Racer NES Secrets and History video. Till next time guys, G3 out.